From claims of healings and visions to the world's most inexplicable events, whether you're a believer or a skeptic, the truth is always worth the hunt.
EWTN Radio presents The Miracle Hunter with Michael O'Neill.
Welcome to the Miracle Hunter radio show on EWTN Radio. This is Michael O'Neill. I'm the Miracle Hunter. Well, happy 2026, everyone. 2025 was quite a big year, and for me personally, I was able to travel to Vienna and Vilnius and Rome this past year. We've got some new Explore episodes coming your way for EWTN television, and a great year all around. And we're entering our 6th year here on EWTN Radio. Thanks for everyone for listening and those who make this possible. And we've got a great show for you again today. We're starting off the year looking at Our Lady of Prompt Succor. And we'll be looking to talk to the Executive Director, Catherine Kaki Pittman Smith. She is the head of that National Votive Shrine of Our Lady of Prompt Succor in New Orleans, Louisiana, one of the great miracle spots here in our very own country. And we'll be looking at the St. Joseph Oratory when we talk with Father Claude Grou about the incredible miracles that happened there with Father Andre Bessette, and also some of the incredible things that have sprung up in the devotions in that area there in Montreal, in Canada. Check out my series, They Might Be Saints. You can go to theymightbesaints.com to watch these episodes. But if you tune in on Tuesday, January 13th, you'll be able to see the episode on EWTN television about Father Augustus Tolton. I examined the sainthood cause for the first black priest in American history, and that's Venerable Augustus Tolton. He overcame tremendous challenges, both inside and outside the Catholic Church. That was one of my favorite episodes that we've done. They Might Be Saints, Father Augustus Tolton, on Tuesday, January 13th. And check out my other series, Explore with the Miracle Hunter. You can go to the website, Explore with the Miracle Hunter, to watch all the episodes on demand. And we start off the new year, Saturday, January 3rd at 8 p.m. I travel to Lourdes to explore the details behind the Blessed Mother's miraculous apparitions to St. Bernadette and the healing waters that have resulted in inexplicable medical cures. And that's Explore with the Miracle Hunter Lourdes on Saturday, January 3rd at 8 p.m. Central Time. We've got a great show for you today, and like we always do, we're going to be looking at the Might Be Saint of the Day. And for today, we've got Blessed William Vives from Spain, who lived in the 15th century. In the 365 Days with Mary project, we've got Our Lady of Sycham from Israel in the year 474. And the question of the week: what is the most convincing type of miracle when talking to Protestants? It's a hard one. I'll do my best to answer that in just a little bit. And the miracle of the day, St. Daniel of Padua, when his relics were uncovered, some miracles took place. We'll talk about those in just a little bit. Let's take a look at the miracle news. We do this every week where we talk about miracles happening all around the world and those things that relate to miracles. And for people who want to keep up to date on these miracle stories, you can go to miraclehunter.com. You can go to the Facebook page to learn more about any of these stories. And so this story being reported by ABC News: doctors deliver baby while removing a 22-pound tumor from the mother. And in what doctors in Los Angeles are calling a medical miracle, a mother gave birth to a baby boy shortly after discovering she was pregnant, while preparing to have a 22-pound ovarian tumor removed. And the hospital there described a series of stunning events in a news release this past week, where they said Susie Lopez delivered when she was pregnant earlier this year after taking the required routine pregnancy test before her scheduled surgery to remove a 22-pound ovarian cyst, according to the hospital. And Lopez, who was a nurse there in California, had dealt with a growing cyst for years. And she said, "I knew that I was pregnant for 5 days. I wasn't even believing it at first because I have ovarian problems, so I was thinking it was a false positive." And her husband, Andrew, added, "I thought she was joking, and it didn't really sink in until I got that little gift from her." And so after she told her husband the news, Susie said she began experiencing abdominal pain and headed to the hospital. And there, the medical director of labor and delivery began working with his team to care for her. And diagnostic images showed Susie Lopez was experiencing a rare abdominal ectopic pregnancy. And the quote is, he was located outside of the uterus, posterior to the big ovarian mass in the abdomen, so the head was up and under the left side of the abdomen, under the spleen. It makes sense that she didn't know because the baby was in her abdomen behind the mass, and it looked like the mass was just growing. In the press release, they explained that a pregnancy this far outside the uterus that continues to develop is almost unheard of. And this discovery astounded doctors. It was profound to see this full-term baby sitting behind a very large ovarian tumor, not in the uterus. The doctor said, who worked at the medical center. In my entire career, I've never heard of one making it this far into the pregnancy. We had to figure out how to deliver the baby with the placenta and its blood vessels attached in the abdomen, remove the very large ovarian mass, and do everything we could to save mom and this child. And according to the release, about 30 experts, including maternal fetal medicine specialists, gynecological oncologists, nurses, anesthesiologists, and specialists, they were in attendance for this groundbreaking surgery. And during the delivery, doctors lifted the massive dermoid cyst out of the way so Ozimek and team could deliver the baby and hand him off to the neonatal intensive care unit staff, they stated in the statement. And when the baby was delivered, the anesthesiologist began taking care of the hemorrhaging. And so the baby named Grou Lopez was born weighing 8 pounds and had very few health problems, according to the hospital. And the hospital explained that in the release that a primary concern was whether the baby's lungs could function properly. And the following day, we were able to remove the breathing tube. And over the course of his first 2 weeks with us, Grou quickly reached all the important benchmarks for surviving well. He defied all odds. And Susie focused on recovering quickly so she could reunite with her newborn in the NICU. And she credits the nurses with being her guardian angels for taking care of her in this entire process. And Andrew, the father, said, miracles happen, and this definitely was a miracle for us. So what an incredible story about this baby being born while there was a removal of a 22-pound tumor from the mother, called a medical miracle. For more information on this miracle or other miracle stories happening around the world, you can connect to the Facebook page of the Miracle Hunter and read about any of these stories from all around the world. Let's take a look at Catholic Pub Trivia. We do this every week where we ask a trivia question and give it a prize to an emailer who writes in the fastest with the correct answer. And last week we said, in what year did the Catholic Church first celebrate Mary explicitly on January 1st in the 20th century? Now the roots go much deeper than that, and here's the timeline. So in the early church, in the 4th through 6th century, January 1st was primarily celebrated as the octave of Christmas, and that day had a strong Marian theology because, of course, it commemorated Jesus' birth from Mary. In Rome, the liturgy emphasized the Mother of God, Theotokos, especially after the Council of Ephesus in 431, and affirmed that title. However, there was not a distinct Marian solemnity named for January 1st. In the Middle Ages, all the way up to the 1960s, in the Roman Rite, January 1st became known as the Feast of the Circumcision of the Lord. Mary was still honored, but implicitly, not as the principal focus of the feast. And some local calendars highlighted Mary. More clearly, there was no universal Marian solemnity on January 1st. The turning point was 1969, when, after the Second Vatican Council, the Church reformed the liturgical calendar. And in 1969, January 1st was officially designated as the Solemnity of Mary, Mother of God. And that's the answer to that question, 1969. Now, the question for this week: what future U.S. president is associated with the Battle of New Orleans and its improbable and perhaps miraculous result? Again, the question is, what future U.S. president is associated with the Battle of New Orleans and its improbable and miraculous result? If you think you know that answer and want to win the prize, the image of the faces of Mary, send me a message to questions@miraclehunter.com, and answers and winners will be posted on the show page on miraclehunter.com. We need to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to be talking with Catherine Pittman Smith about Our Lady of Prompt Succor in New Orleans. Stay with us for that.
Now, back to the Miracle Hunter on EWTN. Here's Michael O'Neill.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Miracle Hunter radio show on EWTN Radio. This is Michael O'Neill. I'm the Miracle Hunter. We're so excited to talk about miracles happening here in the United States. Perhaps there aren't that many that have been recognized by church authorities, but there are some that have some sort of traditional level of approval, you might say, where over the years we've seen great devotion that has sprung from great miracle stories that have happened even here on our American soil. And one of those places is in New Orleans, and I was just there a few years ago now to the Shrine of Our Lady of Prompt Succor, the National Votive Shrine of Our Lady of Prompt Succor, to be exact, and in New Orleans. And it's an absolutely beautiful older chapel, older devotion here in the United States that not many people here are familiar with. Well, we're so excited to be joined today on this program by the executive director of the Shrine of Our Lady of Prompt Succor, and that is Kaki Pittman Smith. Welcome to the show today, Kaki.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, I'm so excited to have you on here. And of course, we have the feast day coming up related to Our Lady of Prompt Succor, that being January 8th, celebrated in New Orleans and by devotees all around the country. But for many people, they do not know this title of Our Lady of Prompt Succor. What does it mean anyway? This is perhaps a phrase that most Americans wouldn't even know how to make sense of it. What is Our Lady of Prompt Succor?
So Our Lady of Prompt Succor is Our Lady of Quick Help. And it is pronounced multiple ways, Prompt Succor, which is the French original version, but we in America have changed that, many of us, to Prompt Succor.
And where does this devotion come from? Of course, we see this as an older phrase, perhaps, but where does the term Prompt Succor come from anyway? What's the origins of this devotion in the United States?
So the origin is actually started in France. Sister Saint Michel Jansul, Order of Saint Ursula, requested of her bishop to leave France and come to Louisiana to serve in the Ursuline convent in Louisiana. And her bishop, this is in the early 1800s, near the end of the Napoleonic era, and she requested, and he denied that request and told her that she would only be able to leave France if she received the permission and approval of the Pope, who was still imprisoned in Rome by Napoleon. So she set about her life praying for guidance from Our Lady, and said that to Our Lady that if she received a quick and favorable response from the Pope, she would have a statue carved, bring it to Louisiana, to this convent, and develop a devotion in Louisiana and the United States under the title of Our Lady of Prompt Succor, or Quick Help, Our Lady of Quick Help. So within 30 days in 1810, in the early 1800s, 1810, or before, she received that response from the Pope in less than 30 days, which is seemingly quick given all the circumstances. Not only did the Pope receive her request, but he sent a response back. And she was able then to get the approval of her bishop, have the statue carved, and the statue arrived here on December 31st, I believe, 1809, and then in 1810, December 31st, 1810, sorry. And that is the start of the devotion in the city of New Orleans at the Ursuline convent.
Amazing. And even today, when we see in an impending hurricane, which might hit your area more than other places in the country, you see people praying to Our Lady of Prompt Succor, or for the health and well-being of the city. You see her as sort of the patroness of the city, and we've seen numerous cases. I think you're captured in sort of the lore and the history related to the shrine there and of New Orleans itself, we hear of sort of Our Lady of Prompt Succor interceding in the saving of a fire, of the city from a fire, or perhaps in the Battle of New Orleans. Talk about sort of the miracle connection to this devotion of Our Lady of Prompt Succor.
So the people of the city came to pray in the Ursuline Chapel and now the Shrine of Our Lady for any intention, small or large. So there are so many, even small ones that people tell us about, as well as large ones. The largest, I would say, and most well-known maybe, is the request on December 23rd. Andrew Jackson came to the sisters and the Bishop of New Orleans at the time in 1814, not long after the statue had arrived. He came to the bishop and sisters and requested that they pray, please, for the safety of the city, and that he would do his best to protect the city. But the British had come and were going to go to battle at the Battle of New Orleans in January, and that they had plundered much of the East Coast in their way during the War of 1812 and were headed to the city. And the army of the Americans were outnumbered and outgunned. And so the sisters and the bishop, the church was constantly filled with pious citizens, mostly women. Obviously, the men were elsewhere, praying. And on January 8th, on January 7th, they could hear the battle. They could hear the cannons, they could hear the guns from the convent. And on January 8th in the morning, the bishop started a mass, and the sisters vowed that if the Americans were successful in their victory, they would have an annual mass of thanksgiving for the city and citizens being saved from defeat. And so on January 8th, during Mass, at the time of Holy Communion, a messenger from the battlefield entered the church and announced that victory had been swift and the Americans had defeated the British. And so they began the Mass of so they continued the Mass of Thanksgiving, sang the Te Deum, which is a hymn of thanksgiving in the Catholic Church. And we now will celebrate our 210th anniversary of this Mass of Thanksgiving on January 8th at 4 p.m. in the shrine.
Wonderful. I was just going to ask you that how, with the feast day coming up right around the corner, how are things celebrated, even to today's date, in commemoration of some of the big events that have occurred in the past? And it seems to me that the devotion is alive and well and still celebrated annually. Yes, it is celebrated annually. It is our the feast of Our Lady of Prompt Succor isn't tied to when she arrived. Really, it is tied to what is known as maybe the biggest and the Mass of Thanksgiving associated with her intercession on behalf of all the people who prayed. Wonderful. And as we wrap up the interview today, if we think about the title of Our Lady of Prompt Succor and perhaps the meaning of that, an older title, still renewed each and every year, still recognized every year, still important to the people of New Orleans and beyond, what can we see as the meaning of that Marian title for the people of New Orleans and beyond? I think that the title is, and the place of worship is a place where people can come for pilgrimage and to feel hope in their lives. And as I say that, I will say that we are a site listed for 2025 as a place of pilgrimage in the city and in the United States for the Jubilee year of Pilgrims of Hope. And so I think our regular mission of hope and welcome for all is directly tied to this Jubilee year. Wonderful. And we're so grateful to you, Kaki Pittman Smith, the Executive Director of the National Shrine of Our Lady of Prompt Succor in New Orleans, Louisiana. And for people who want to find out more about this devotion or how to visit your shrine, what's the best place that people can go? The best place is our website, which is www.shrineolps.com.
www.miraclehunter.com, or our Facebook page, the National Votive Shrine of Our Lady of Prompt Succor. We also have recently released a documentary related to many of the special intentions and intercession of Our Lady. It's available through the PDF website and public information. So,
wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Kaki Pittman Smith, Executive Director of the National Votive Shrine of Our Lady of Prompt Succor, for joining us on today's program.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
God bless. That was Kaki Pittman Smith, the Executive Director of the National Votive Shrine of Our Lady of Prompt Succor. Check out that shrine. It's absolutely amazing. Anytime you're in New Orleans, you can go online as well. We need to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to be looking at the question of the week. Stay with us for that.
Now, back to the Miracle Hunter on EWTN. Here's Michael O'Neill.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Miracle Hunter radio show on EWTN Radio. This is Michael O'Neill. I'm the Miracle Hunter. Hey, I love getting your questions. People write in from around the world with questions about miracles happening in today's world and those that have happened centuries ago. And when we talk to many people about miracles, whether they be Catholics or otherwise, people have different answers. And so that, or different responses, I should say. And so that's the subject of this week's questions from Bill. Bill says, Miracle Hunter, what is the most convincing type of miracle when talking to Protestants? Thank you, Bill. Well, thanks, Bill, for your question. And it's a good one. And I think that it's important to note that when we talk with Catholics and Protestants, perhaps there's a different focus when it comes to miracles. And I think that when we talk to Protestants, healing miracles seem to be the most compelling and the most comfortable, at least. I remember being on the Dr. Oz show some years ago where I was on as the Catholic representative, and there was a Protestant pastor there, and he focused on some things, and I focused on some of the church's process and how they investigate miracles. And when we look at these different things, I think that the Catholic Church has so many various types of miracles that it looks at. We talk about Marian apparitions, weeping statues, stigmata, Eucharistic miracles. There are so many that point directly to the Catholic faith, to saints, and to the Blessed Mother in particular in many cases. And so for Protestants, those miracles aren't as engaging, or they're easily ignored or preferentially ignored, because that might require a person opening themselves to a more fuller understanding of the Christian faith. And so I think that when we talk to Protestants, it seems that healing miracles are the ones that we can find common ground on. And, of course, when we talk about the healing miracles that are looked at by the Catholic Church, we can talk about those at Lourdes, those 72 miracles happening since 1858 in Lourdes, France, following the apparitions received by St. Bernadette Soubirous. And we also talk about the healing miracles of saints recognized in sainthood causes. Obviously, saints and Mary, those are both topics that Protestants don't usually want to engage on, but healing miracles are. And so when we point to those healing miracles, even from those places, Lourdes and canonization causes, I find that Protestants are more likely than not to be interested in those stories. And so, of course, everybody's on their own path and on their own faith journey. But when I talk about miracles, I always start with healing miracles when I talk to Protestants about them. And of course, it's always fun to eventually end up on topics like Eucharistic miracles, because I think that's pretty interesting. And I do find that most Protestants, especially miracle-minded ones, do think that the stigmata is an interesting concept, and perhaps that is something that could be universal for all of us as well. So despite its very small number of people throughout the world who have ever had it. So anyway, thanks so much, Bill, for your question. And if you have a question for the Miracle Hunter, you can send me an email to questions@miraclehunter.com, and maybe I'll be answering your question on the air next week.
Maybe I'll be answering your question on the air next week. 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 Next
Let's take a look at the 365 Days with Mary project. We do this every week where we look at a Marian devotion as it lines up exactly to the day's date. We all know Fatima May 13th, or Lourdes February 11th, or Guadalupe December 12th, but believe it or not, there's a different other Marian devotion that lines up to every day on the calendar throughout the world. And we're talking about the celebration of feast days, the building of basilicas, a great miracle happening, or another way that each of those days is celebrated. And so for today's date, we've got January 3rd, we've got Our Lady of Succor from Israel in the year 474. And the original location of the shrine was below Mount Gerizim in Israel. And later, the shrine in Brabant in Louvain was constructed as a replacement. The Christians who settled there were persecuted by the Samaritans. When the first emperor gave Mount Gerizim to the Christians in 474, a church was built in that place, honoring the Blessed Virgin Mary. And the ancient statue of Our Lady of Succor later became known as Our Lady of Montague, which is now a more common title that's been venerated in Belgium for centuries. And that is Our Lady of Succor from Israel in the year 474. Let's take a look at the miracle of the day. We do this every week where we find a miracle that happened on the day's date on some year in Christian history. So for today's date, January 3rd, we've got the miracle related to St. Daniel of Padua. St. Daniel of Padua is traditionally commemorated on January 3rd, the date associated with the translation and re-enshrinement of his relics. And according to Christian tradition, the miraculous event connected with his relics is often dated to the year 168, around the time of his martyrdom and early veneration. And the location of his burial in Padua, Italy, had reportedly been forgotten for a long period, and tradition recounts that St. Daniel appeared in a vision to a blind man in Padua on January 3rd of that year. The saint directed him to pray at an oratory marking the hidden site of Daniel's tomb. And when the man obeyed, he was miraculously healed of his blindness, leading to the rediscovery of St. Daniel's relics and renewed devotion amongst the faithful. And that is today's miracle of the day, related to St. Daniel of Padua. Each week we'll be looking at a new miracle of the day. Let's take a look at the sainthood news. We do this every week where we talk about those people on the path to sainthood and where they are in the process. And so last week, Pope Leo received an audience, His Eminence Cardinal Marcello Semeraro, the prefect of the Dicastery for the Causes of Saints. And during this audience, the Pope authorized the same dicastery to promulgate a decree regarding the martyrdom of the servants of God, Ignacio Ales Vaquero, seminarian, and 10 companions. He was a diocesan priest, seminarians, lay faithful. They were killed out of hatred for the faith between 1936 and 1937 in the territory of the Diocese of Madrid. And so, again, we're talking about Ignacio Ales Vaquero and his 10 companions in the years 1936 to 1937. And according to the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith, or Causes for Saints website, there's an extensive documentation of the seminarians' clear willingness to give their lives to the Lord, aware of the anti-Christian hatred unleashed against members of the Catholic Church, and they remain close to their families and friends, unwaveringly, despite the danger. The reputation for martyrdom spread, for some immediately after their killings, and for others in later times, especially in their home diocese, that continues to this day. And so that's today's sainthood news, that though they have moved those people along the path, and now they're blessed, and with one miracle, they will be declared saints. And the might-be saint of the day, we always try to find a saint whose feast day or death anniversary lines up exactly to the day's date. Today's January 3rd, so the memorial for today is Blessed William Vives. He was a Mercedarian friar at Barcelona in Spain. He was the prior of his house, and at one point he became involved in political maneuvers involving both church and state authorities, and it led to civil protection and benefits to the convent. He wrote biographies of St. Peter Nolasco and Blessed Maria de Cervellón, and they were used in the canonization process. He died in the early 15th century of natural causes, and he's buried at the monastery there in Barcelona. And he is today's might-be saint of the day, Blessed William Vives from Spain. And let's take a look at They Might Be Saints, people who are interested in learning more about my project, about people on the path to sainthood. You can go and buy my book from EWTN-RC, or EWTN Religious Catalog, that's EWTNRC.com, or you can tune into the program, which every Tuesday it airs on EWTN television. And for this week, we look at the life of Father Augustus Tolton. I examine the sainthood cause of the first black priest in history, Venerable Augustus Tolton, who overcame tremendous challenges both inside and outside the Catholic Church. You can also go to theymightbesaints.com, which connects to the EWTN Religious or EWTN On Demand, where you can watch any of those episodes anytime that you want. We need to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to be talking with Father Claude Grou about the St. Joseph Oratory in Montreal. Stay with us for that.
Now, back to the Miracle Hunter on EWTN. Here's Michael O'Neill.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Miracle Hunter radio show on EWTN Radio. This is Michael O'Neill. I'm the Miracle Hunter. Well, we love talking about saints, miracle-working saints in particular. That's a great focus on this program especially. And there have been miracle-working saints for countries all over the world, but there's one close to home from Canada, and his name is St. Andre Bessette. And in the United States, his feast day is celebrated on January 6th, and in Canada, January 7th. So we're so honored today to welcome the rector of the St. Joseph Oratory, and that is Father Claude Grou. Welcome back to the program, Father Claude.
Thank you.
Well, it's a wonderful thing, and here in the United States, some people know about St. Andre Bessette, and he isn't too far away, being from Canada, our neighbor. But many people don't know the story of St. Andre. Tell us a little bit about what you can tell us about the man. Introduce us to St. Andre Bessette.
Certainly. Well, the story has something to do with United States because Andre Bessette was born in 1845 in the poor areas of Quebec province. And then when he was about 15, 16 years old, he went to work in the United States, in the northeast of United States. At that time, there were many people from French Canada who would go to work in the factories, as they called them, in the United States. And he was there for about 3 years. Then he came back to Canada. And then when he came back to Canada, he went to a place which is called Saint-Césaire, not far from his birthplace. And there he met the Brothers of Holy Cross who were having school there. And after talking with his parish priest, he joined the congregation of Holy Cross. And 1870, he became a member of the congregation of Holy Cross. Then he was appointed at Collège Notre Dame. He had never been to school, so he was not a man to be a teacher. But then he was ready to do any work that was asked from him. And they asked him to be doorkeeper at Collège Notre Dame. And as a doorkeeper, he had all kinds of other odd jobs, like cleaning the corridors and do other things there in the school. But then as he was a doorkeeper, he met a lot of people. And people start talking about their problems, their difficulty. And Brother Andre would say, well, we'll pray St. Joseph together. And after he prayed with the people, many people discovered that through this prayer they were healed, or that their prayers were answered. So they had a lot of confidence in Brother Andre. And then he continued to do his work there for many, many years. And in the beginning of the 20th century, 1904, in fact, he started a small shrine in Montreal. It's called the Oratory. It's a misnomer for such a big place. An oratory normally is a small prayer place. That's precisely what it was when he started. Then it started to grow, and Brother Andre more and more was doing his healing with people. People come to ask for a prayer from him. And then Brother Andre kept saying, no, I'm not healing anybody. It is God who is healing. I'm praying with you, and we pray St. Joseph, and God does his work. And this reputation started growing, and today this has become one of the biggest shrines in the world, and the biggest dedicated to St. Joseph.
Absolutely beautiful. We're talking today with Father Claude Grou about the St. Joseph Oratory and St. Andre Bessette, the founder of that. And talk to us, you mentioned that St. Andre would often welcome people to pray with them, pray to St. Joseph, I assume,
Right.
and seek miracles. And he became known as a miracle worker. Talk a little bit about that reputation that grew throughout the United States, Canada, and beyond.
Yeah, the word the miracle worker was more used in the United States, and but then the fact is many people experience the healing power of God through the prayer of Brother Andre. Brother Andre kept saying, "I've never healed anybody, but I pray to Saint Joseph, and together we pray to the Lord, and the Lord does marvelous things for the people." So I would say he saw himself as an intercessor, as somebody who would pray with people, and this prayer would bring marvelous results to people. And so many people discovered that after praying that they were healed, so that many of these people would walk with crutches and then would bring back the crutches to say, "Brother Andre, I don't need them anymore because I am healed." And then Brother Andre says, "Well, keep them as a remembrance of God, what God has done for you." And when you go to St. Joseph Oratory, you have the votive chapel, where you have many of these crutches that are placed there. They were all things that were given back to Brother Andre as a sign of thanking him and thanking God for the healing they have experienced.
That's beautiful. Just like the places of healing all around the world, those mementos of the healing are often displayed in the chapels and the oratories there. And we've been talking today with Father Claude Grou about the St. Joseph Oratory. For those people, Father, who would like to visit and to experience the shrine for themselves, tell us a little bit about some of the features of the shrine, or what would people see when they experience it?
Well, just to walk around and see the main things of the shrines, they certainly need 1.5 hours at least just to have a first look, because there's in 1917 they built the crypt church, which basically is a large church. It's not technically a crypt because it is not under the basilica, because we are on the side of the mountain, but it's a beautiful chapel with a beautiful statue of St. Joseph. And what is very particular is that Brother Andre, from the time he came to the Oratory and from the time it was built till his death, he would go and pray in that crypt church. You always have the place where Brother Andre would stand and sit and pray. And this is one of the beautiful things to visit. Then next to it, you have the tomb of Brother Andre, and then you have this votive chapel with all the candles and with all the crutches that people have placed there. And then when you move on to the upper level, you have a place where you can have the heart of Brother Andre, which is kept there as kind of an important relic of Brother Andre, remembering this heart filled with love. And a lot of people would come and pray in front of the heart of Brother Andre. We have kind of a little place where people can pray there. And then at the same level, we have a little exhibit on the life of Brother Andre. And then when you go up to what we call the 6th level, this is the big basilica. Again, this is a huge basilica. We have place for more than 2,000 people in the basilica. That's where we have all the major celebration at Christmas, at Easter, and also for the Feast of St. Joseph on 19th of March. We have beautiful celebration there. So people can come and experience the place, experience the people praying in the place. I always say, you don't visit the Oratory as you visit a museum where they tell you how things were when this was working, because it's still a working place. It's still a place where people express their faith, and people who come there, they can have a great respect when they see people kneeling down and expressing their faith and praying there. Very often people who come just as tourists to see are struck by the faith they see there, and sometimes their hearts are touched also by the piety and the great devotion of so many visitors who are coming there.
Absolutely beautiful. And for people who want to find out more, is there a website or phone number or other way that people can find out more how to make a pilgrimage there?
Right. The website is easy to visit. The name of the website is simply Saint, S-A-I-N-N-T, Saint and Joseph, saintjoseph.org. So with this site, you can have a visit to the place. You can know a lot more about the place when you want to visit the place. And you also have all the details of how to reach the place.
Wonderful. saintjoseph.org. And as we wrap up the interview today, Father Claude, talk about, for our modern world, how can St. Andre Bessette be a great example of us? And what is his message for us, even in today's world?
Well, there are many ways of looking at the message of St. Andre Bessette, but I like this year to make a link between the message of St. Andre Bessette and the Jubilee year. As you know, the title of the Jubilee year for the church is Pilgrims of Hope. And I think Brother Andre was a man who brought hope. People who came with all their worries, all their difficulties, their sickness, and would come to the place, and then they saw a man who was always filled with hope in God, and pray to Saint Joseph, and God will help you. And he kept bringing this message to people, saying that God is good, God is loving, God cares for you. And this message of hope, I think, is always very important. I would say, especially in these days when we feel so many troubles, so many problems in the society around us, sometimes problems in our family, to have somebody who reminds us that there is always something to hope for and that the love of God is always present in our life. I think this is a constant message that St. Joseph, Brother Andre brings to us, and I think it is more relevant to our world today.
Wonderful. Well, we're so grateful to you, Father Claude Grou, the rector of the St. Joseph Oratory, for telling us about the life of St. Andre Bessette in lieu of his feast day this week. Thank you so much for being on our program today.
Thank you.
God bless. That was Father Claude Grou from the St. Joseph Oratory in Canada, talking to us about the great miracle-working saint, St. Andre Bessette, in lieu of his feast day, January 6th in the United States, January 7th in Canada. And that's all the time we have for today's show. If you missed any of this episode or want to catch up on past episodes, you can go to EWTN.com/radio, check out the audio archives, or download the free EWTN app. I'd like to thank our guest today, Catherine Pittman Smith, the Executive Director of the National Votive Shrine of Our Lady of Prompt Succor in New Orleans, and Father Claude Grou, talking to us about St. Andre Bessette and the St. Joseph Oratory in Montreal. Check out my series, Explore with the Miracle Hunter. It resets starting on January 3rd at 8 p.m. I travel to Lourdes to explore the details behind the Blessed Mother's miraculous apparitions to St. Bernadette Soubirous and the healing waters that have resulted in inexplicable medical cures. And I'd like to thank you for joining me today on Miracle Hunter, where from claims of healings and visions to the world's most inexplicable events, whether you're a believer or a skeptic, the truth is always worth the hunt. Talk to you next week.